the whole crypto industry in a way is completely dead right now. Now, this popping of bubble could have been done to basically back off an experiment, which would later on be proceeded by these governments, institutions, or basically the people who are in charge of this world, I would like to say, in charge of this simulation, right? And now, before you skip this video, just thinking me of another just a conspiracy theorist or someone who doesn't have any backing of what he says, I will genuinely provide you actual logics behind the stuff I'm saying right now. Now, why do I think that the whole crypto bubble has been popped, or why do I think that this whole industry is technically dead and is just living off of air, right? It always was living on the air, but never in the history of crypto, at least, these kind of liquidations took place. I'm talking about liquidations above $40 billion in just one day. Basically, just completely wiping off almost 400 to $450 billion in overall crypto market cap in basically just one day. And most people don't understand of how much of a bigger nuke this could have been if this whole thing was completely driven by these institutions or these governments. Most of the supply of Bitcoin or majority of the coins that are deriving this whole crypto industry right now is still being owned by these huge whales or the retail, I would say. People who are not censored that much to do these activities on the chain, right? But the crash we just experienced was much bigger than the Luna crash, bigger than the COVID, and bigger than the FTX as well. There were literally people who were genuinely sad about this. Now, I never did leverage trading in a way. I always did it for fun or just to basically just gamble, right? But instead of doing these leverage trades, I usually just went on the deck screener or Axiom and traded off meme coins because it's technically the same thing, but instead of this leverage trading, I have more control over the meme coin. Why? Because it is completely community driven, retail driven, and it is decentralized in a way that the community actually has control over that whole meme coin project, right? We do see rug pulls every day in meme coins. Possibly all of the coins, almost 95% of the coins are completely rugged, right? But they are rugged to provide exit liquidity to those guys who were skillful or knowledgeable enough to basically make money off of that. And that is the same thing that happens in leverage trading. Here you are basically experiencing or seeing that people lost $40 billion. But there were people who made $40 billion on the other hand as well. But unfortunately, this time it's almost opposite because this time instead of real people like me or you making money, people who don't have much connections in the whole space or people who don't know that much of an insider don't have that much of an insider knowledge, they didn't made that much money, right? I'm talking about insider traders, and it is so gruesome to see that I don't know what these people will do with so much money. This guy just made $190 million in one day, and he was placing shorts just 1 minute before Trump's actual tariff tweet. And I think that CoffeeZilla actually posted this. Anyways, let's just take a look at. I think he took like almost 104 to $110 million worth of shorts, and then he ended up making $190 million off of different account, which was indirectly linked with just one account, right? Let's actually just open CoffeeZilla's tweet. I remember him, you know, talking about it. Yes. So basically, this was the tweet of him. So the Trump's tariff tweet, where he actually just told everyone that he is going to put 100% tariffs on China from November 1st, that was released at 20:50 GMT, right? And this guy was placing up shorts up till 20:49 GMT. Now we are talking about all of this, and I'm pretty much sure that most of the people watching this video already know about all of this, right? The insider trading of basically how crypto is basically getting manipulated and all. But why are they manipulating crypto? Why are they not just manipulating their original fiat dollar? Why are they getting into stable coins? Why are they doing this all of these things? Why are they basically doing this, right? One thing that you have to basically understand is that I'm not trying to defame anybody. I will probably not get much views on this video as well, right? But everything is interconnected in a way, and people who know the system, or let's say people who know how that computer works, they always end up profiting, or they always don't end up in loss, or they always don't end up in a consequence. Now that is something which could be a reality in their own simulation. But if we talk about the whole world in a way, or this whole big screen we're living in a way, there is a karmic retribution to all of this. This guy made so much money off of his tweet, right? So, what is one thing that is happening in crypto space right now that just makes me think that this industry is technically dead? And I'm only betting on few of these coins whose utility is actually being utilized in the present, also will be utilized in the future. I'm talking about coins like Solana. I'm talking about coins like Monero specifically. Now, there are many other coins as well. I don't like BNB at all. BNB is completely driven by these centralized institutions or entities that are controlling everything. Like you just, I remember viewing one of this GCR's tweet. For those of you who don't know who GCR is, he is basically a crypto billionaire and a long-term visionary. He's gotten few things wrong as well, but most of the things he said are proven to be true right now. He said that the most of the pumps we will see in future will be on WeChat, will be on will be in these Asian times, or will be out of the community we know of, right? And that is what's happening right now. If I just open Dex Screener for an example, let me just search Dex Screener here. Most of the coins you see here, you see the Chinese text before it. I don't understand Chinese, so don't most of the people living in the United States or UK don't understand Chinese. Most of the people who understand Chinese are the Chinese themselves, or most of the people who understand Urdu are Pakistanis themselves, or most of the people who understand Hindi are Indians themselves. English is basically, you can say, a very international language, and most of the people from any part of the world, they know English, right? It is probably the language for the future as well. So let's take a look at Dex Screener right now. All of these coins on BNB are genuinely those coins which are being pumped by these Chinese whales. Now you might ask that why are they pumping these coins? Why can't they just leave it up to retail? Because retail doesn't want to use BNB. BNB is an absolute shit chain. It has the worst user experience, and it probably has no utility except that it is linked to the biggest centralized exchange in the world. But centralized exchanges won't really exist in the future, and that's why these centralized exchanges were rolling out features like having no KYC to an extent, or having these decentralized exchanges within that centralized exchange, right? Because they know that people are eventually going to shift towards an actual crypto or Web3 ideology, that is decentralization, right? Now, coming back to the topic on why I think that this whole industry is dead, it is because that we can take any industry for example. Let's take clothing for example, right? Why did clothing industry grow, or why did real estate industry grow? And whenever these industries got overvalued, they always corrected to its logical retail level, right? So if I take this hoodie for an example, this hoodie or this clothing industry is growing because the population is growing, and more people need clothes, and clothes are an essential part of life. Like you can't really go out naked, right? Now again, so basically this is something you need. So the utility of clothes, or this clothing industry, is actually being utilized because people need clothes. But if we talk about Bitcoin, or if we talk about cryptocurrencies overall, now most of the retail or most of the people watching this video, they don't know much about crypto in terms of its actual tech. They just think that Bitcoin is just far away from the governmental or institutional control, right? Whereas it is basically completely opposite. And just because they think that there are miners on chain, and just because they think that the tech is decentralized, doesn't mean that Bitcoin is decentralized. Bitcoin right now is probably more centralized than cash itself. Why? Because Bitcoin doesn't provide anonymity or privacy on the internet. Your identity is completely linked to a wallet address, and basically anyone, not only governments but anyone, can see how much money you hold, or all of the transactions that you have made, and everything is basically traceable on Bitcoin's own blockchain. Now I'm talking about Bitcoin. There are other chains as well who almost work the same way, but they are much more centralized in terms of tech, right? But if you talk about Bitcoin, it is decentralized in terms of tech, but in terms of price action, in terms of inflation or in terms of devaluation, it is not decentralized. People don't drive the price of Bitcoin. It's the governments, it's the institutions who are driving the price of Bitcoin, at least right now. Previously, they never did, but at least right now, they are doing that. Now, the worst thing that happened to Bitcoin was MicroStrategy. If MicroStrategy never existed, I think there would be a lot more peace in this whole ecosystem. There will be a lot more decentralization in this whole ecosystem, because most people, I'm talking about the older whales who had huge sums of money in Bitcoin at that time. Now they are probably billionaires or multimillionaires, right? They got into Bitcoin not because it was anonymous or not because it was private. Bitcoin, everybody in 2013 to 2014 knew that Bitcoin is not private, and the people at FBI are actually happy when criminal uses Bitcoin instead of just transacting via Monero or Cash, because Bitcoin is easily traceable. Even if you use tumblers, it is traceable to an extent. So they got into Bitcoin because they knew that this is a decentralized technology, which means that if there will be any devaluation or inflation, it will be because of the most of the people surrounding that chain, which is Bitcoin. But what's happening right now is when most of the supply of Bitcoin is being owned by institutions, by ETFs, by centralized means, by governments, this just ruins the whole ecosystem, because now Bitcoin is a centralized entity. The price action or the price is basically derived by these institutions, and they make you think that you really need Bitcoin as an asset, or you really need Bitcoin. You don't need Bitcoin. You need privacy. You need something which is decentralized. You need something which is genuinely hated by governments. There are no regulations upon it, and there can be no regulations upon it. You need something which is not legalized in a way. I'm talking about coins like Monero. Monero is hated by these centralized entities or centralized institutions or governments overall. So, coming back to that industry topic on why the clothing industry is just succeeding and succeeding and succeeding, and whenever it's overvalued, or basically whenever there is more supply than the demand, this basically just collapses in a way, right? Same with real estate and all. It is because people actually need clothes. But if we talk about Bitcoin, all of you nerds talking about Bitcoin, how many times have you transacted via Bitcoin? How many times have you purchased a cup of coffee with Bitcoin's own layer 1? None. If we talk about Solana, at least people on Solana know that the chain is not decentralized. At least people on Solana know that they are not, completely anonymous, but they are happy because it provides the best user experience. It probably has the best community, and it probably has the most entertainment on chain. And that's why people shifted to Solana. And Solana, when it reached at its all time high, I think it was above $270. It reached that all time high because people were actually buying Solana to trade meme coins. So there was an actual backing of the utility they were promoting or advertising, that was being fast, that was being very cost efficient. Basically, if you want to invest into something for a longer term, you need to see if its utility is actually being utilized in the present and it will be utilized in the future. So let's talk about Zcash for an example. I hate Zcash. Zcash is genuinely a Satan backed currency. I said this multiple times on my Twitter account. Zcash is genuinely something which is backed by Satan. If you just take a look at its all-time charts, I will just shift to market cap. Just take a look at this. It went from 1.83 million volume in 24 hours back in March 2017 up till 142 million 24-hour volume and 2.416 billion dollar in market cap, and then it completely died. It went back to 280 million dollars in market cap, and then it regained momentum. It went to 3.6 billion dollar in market cap, almost $1 billion in 24-hour. Uh, almost billion dollar, was almost $1 billion in 24-hour volume. It almost died then. Just look at this chart. How much manipulated this chart really is. Ye, this pumps dump, pump dump, pumps dump. I genuinely think that the people who are Satanists, people who were already controlling Bitcoin, or people who created Bitcoin in a way, they are trying to shift the perspective of people from Bitcoin to Zcash, because now they know that people will genuinely question security, people will genuinely question privacy on the internet, and people will genuinely question of how easily Bitcoin can get inflated or devalued within seconds. This is the biggest example of that. This is the biggest example of that. I was, I said this. Let me just show you guys. Let me just search. Let me just go on my Twitter and search 45. Now I'm not taking any credits. I already said that I'm not predicting anything. This is something which is clearly obvious. And if you actually believe you're living in a simulation, you can easily decode these things. I said this multiple times, that how I think that Bitcoin is genuinely going to $45,000. And I think on my Instagram, because I have most of my following on Instagram, I made a post a week ago that Bitcoin will experience the biggest red candle ever seen. I didn't say that Bitcoin will go to 45k back on Instagram. I said that Bitcoin will genuinely experience the biggest red candle ever seen, and I said that a month ago. This was the post, I think. And yeah, as you can see, I said there were people laughing on me, right? So I said that Bitcoin will experience the biggest red candle. It's not because I'm just, there is actually a saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day. I'm not predicting these things the same way I actually predicted, the war between Pakistan and India, because I knew that there will be now a cold war, because USA never comes on the front end. They always, either manipulate the markets by these private institutions, or experiment new things via these private institutions or these companies. And same way in wars, they basically experiment these things via a cold war. So if they want to give out a message to Russia, or if they want to give out a message to China, they will set up a war between those countries that are somehow bonded with these countries, like Pakistan and India. So it is technically a war backed by China and USA. Or Russia and Ukraine, it is technically a war which is backed by Russia and which is generally a war between Russia and USA. Ukraine doesn't have the resources to fight possibly an upcoming superpower, which is Russia, right? I hope that you guys have actually enjoyed this video, and I'll make more of this video. We'll talk about AIs, we will talk about philosophical opinions on AIs, we'll talk about security and privacy, how it's basically being affected. We'll talk about this stimulated algorithms. We'll talk about these things which generally most people are not talking about right now. And I'm pretty sure if you'll follow me right now, you are going to make money. And and more important than money, you are going to get knowledge. And I'm selling you no courses. I will probably never sell any course. And even though if I was selling courses, I don't think that selling courses is wrong, because even your shittiest course sellers provides you much more knowledge than your average universities or school. So yeah, I'm not against course sellers. I'm against fake lifestyles and all, because most people who have the most following related to Web3, or related to stocks, or related to drop shipping and all, they have never provided any genuine knowledge. They have only shown their lifestyle. So basically they are these lifestyle influencers. And if you're getting into something just for the sake of money, you won't end up making money. And one of the things that you know that sort of made me just uh, create this YouTube channel, even though I knew that I would probably make no money off of this YouTube channel. I genuinely made only $100 off of this YouTube channel, genuinely only $100, and I probably gave that away. I don't know, right? And but the reason I created this channel was to just provide knowledge, because I think that I've cracked this code, that if you will actually help people, if you will actually think for the better of the people, if you actually have genuine and honest intentions, and you sort of take an action for that, you God will reward you in some sort of way. Our architect will reward us in some sort of way. Anyways, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Thanks.